The message arrived on Evan Calder's console exactly at the end of the work cycle. Report to Director Kothes's office. Immediate. No reason was given. That alone made Evan's stomach tighten. Humans had been part of the coalition for only 6 years. That was nothing on a galactic scale. 6 years was still recent incident territory. Humans were still watched, still measured, still quietly judged. Evan knew the rules well enough. When a director summoned you without explanation, it usually meant a mistake had been found. Or worse, a misunderstanding that needed to be clarified. He shut down his workstation carefully, making sure every data stream was closed. His co-workers noticed the summons too. A few alien heads tilted in curiosity. One of the Varel engineers let his color patterns flicker in what Evan had learned was concern. "Good luck," the Varel said softly. "That did not help." Director Kothes's office was located in the inner ring of the station, far from the shared workspaces. The walk felt longer than usual. The lighting shifted subtly as Evan passed through security fields tuned to Kothes's species. He felt the familiar prickle across his skin as the scanners read his biology, his implants, his stress levels. He wondered what they were reporting right now. Anxiety, probably. Human anxiety. Kothes's species did not have a direct word for that. The office doors opened without a sound. The room inside was larger than Evan expected, with high, curved walls that caught the light and bent it into soft patterns. No sharp corners. No visible screens. Everything in the room felt deliberate, calm, controlled. Kothes stood near the central window, her back to him. She was tall, even by human standards. Her form slender and upright. Her skin shimmered faintly. Not with color, but with texture, like polished stone under water. Her head was smooth, her eyes dark and reflective, positioned slightly wider than a human's. She wore the simple insignia of a coalition director, no decoration, no excess. She did not turn around right away. "Enter, Evan Calder," she said. Her voice was even, carefully modulated, translated through the implant behind his ear into clean, emotionless English. He stepped fully into the room.
Doors closed behind him. "Director," Evan said, keeping his tone respectful.
"You asked to see me?" "Yes." Still she did not turn. Several seconds passed. Evan stood there, hands at his sides, trying not to fidget. Humans were bad at stillness. He knew that. He had been told that. More than once. Finally, Kothes turned to face him. Her gaze settled on him with full attention, not the partial awareness she usually used during meetings. This was focused, studying. "Before we continue," she said, "this meeting is not being recorded." Evan blinked. I'm sorry?" She lifted one long finger and tapped the air. Evan felt a slight pressure behind his eyes as his implant confirmed it. No recording, no monitoring. Even the station's passive sensors were blocked. That was not normal.
"This meeting," Kothes repeated, "is not about your work performance." Evan's first reaction was relief. His second was confusion.
His third was fear. "Okay," he said carefully. "Then, what is it about?" Kothes considered him for a moment longer, as if deciding how to arrange her words. "It is about you," she said, "and a concept you carry that I do not." Evan swallowed. "I'm not sure I understand." "That is expected." She gestured toward one of the curved seating structures. It slowly reshaped itself into something that vaguely resembled a chair. "Sit," she said. Evan hesitated for half a second, then obeyed. He perched on the edge, back straight, trying to look calm. He was very aware that he was alone in a sealed room with one of the most powerful beings on the station. Kothes did not sit. She remained standing, hands folded behind her back. "For 3 rotation cycles," she said, I have observed an irregularity in my cognitive processes. Evan frowned slightly. An irregularity? Yes. She stepped closer, not aggressively, but with purpose. My species does not experience emotional fluctuation as humans define it.
Our decision-making is stable, predictable,
efficient.
Evan nodded.
He had read the files. Everyone had. However, Kathas continued, since your assignment to my division, that stability has been compromised. Evan's heart skipped. Director, if I've done something wrong? You have not, she interrupted.
That is the problem. She tilted her head slightly. Evan had learned that was her species' equivalent of focus.
You perform your duties within acceptable parameters. You exceed expectations in adaptability. But that is not the source. She paused. The source, she said, is interaction. Evan stared at her.
Interaction? Yes. Casual conversation.
Unscheduled dialogue. The manner in which you speak when not required to. He thought back to all the times he had chatted during data reviews, made small jokes, asked how her cycle was going, even though he knew she did not experience time the same way. He had assumed she tolerated it because humans were human.
I don't mean to be inappropriate, Evan said quickly. I know humans can be informal.
If that's an issue, I can adjust.
That will not be necessary,
Kathas said. She stepped closer again, until she was standing directly in front of him, not invading his space, but near enough that Evan became acutely aware of her presence. Evan Calder, she said. What does the word lonely mean? The question hit him harder than any accusation could have. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Lonely? He repeated. Yes. Her eyes did not blink. Her voice did not change. It appears frequently in human communication, not only in speech, but in art, entertainment, and historical records. Yet it does not correlate directly with physical isolation.
Evan let out a slow breath. That's a big question,
he said.
I have allocated sufficient time,
Kathas replied. He rubbed his hands together once, then stopped himself. Okay. Lonely is when you feel like you're not connected to anyone, even if you're surrounded by people. Kathas processed that. Evan could almost see the calculations happening behind her eyes. So it is a perception, she said, not a condition? Yes.
Kind of. It's, emotional.
She tilted her head again. My species does not experience that, she said. Yet recently, when I returned to my quarters, there is a silence. It is not auditory. It is not inefficient. But it is uncomfortable. Evan's chest tightened. And you think that's loneliness? He asked quietly. I believe it may be adjacent, but I cannot confirm this without human input. He looked up at her, really looked. For the first time, he did not see a director or an alien authority figure. He saw someone trying to understand something unfamiliar and unsettling. That's why you called me? He asked. Yes. Not a psychologist or a cultural liaison? Kathas paused. You were selected because the effect is strongest in your presence. Evan? Froze. I don't know how to respond to that. That is acceptable. She took a step back, giving him space. Humans, she said, possess a capacity for emotional influence that exceeds predictive models. Your species alters environments without conscious intent. He gave a small, nervous laugh. Yeah? We're kind of messy like that. That is an imprecise description, Kathas said. Then, after a brief pause, but not inaccurate. Silence settled between them. Not the uncomfortable kind this time, but something quieter, thoughtful. I don't want to cause problems, Evan said finally. If my behavior is affecting you in a negative way, it is not negative, Kathess said immediately. Her response was faster than before, less calculated. It is unfamiliar. Evan nodded slowly. That's usually how it starts, he said. How what starts? Change. Kathess studied him again, longer this time. This meeting, she said, is not concluded. Evan's pulse quickened. I will require further discussion, she continued. Not as your superior, but as an individual seeking understanding. Done. He hesitated. Is that allowed? For now, she said. It is necessary. The lights in the room shifted slightly, signaling the end of the formal cycle.
You may return to your duties, Kathess said. We will speak again. Evan stood, legs a little unsteady.
Yes, Director. As he turned toward the doors, her voice stopped him. Evan Calder. He looked back.
Thank you, she said. The doors opened.
Evan walked out, heart racing, mind spinning, knowing with absolute certainty that whatever had just begun in that room had nothing to do with work anymore. Evan tried to return to his work. That was the problem. His hands moved over the console, opening files, checking data flows, approving minor adjustments just like he had done hundreds of times before. On the surface, nothing had changed. The station still hummed with its steady rhythm. The coalition system still needed human oversight. His coworkers still exchanged brief nods and efficient greetings, but Evan's mind kept drifting back to the sealed office, to the way Director Kathess had said his name, to the question she had asked. What does lonely mean? Humans ask that question too sometimes, usually late at night, usually when something already felt wrong. He told himself to focus. Overthinking was a very human habit, and one that other species did not respect. Still, when the next message arrived on his console, only 2 work cycles later, his chest tightened again. Private consultation approved. Location unchanged. No signature. None was needed. Evan stared at the words for several seconds before standing up. This time, there were fewer curious glances as he left. News traveled fast on a station like this. People noticed patterns, and being summoned twice by a director in such a short time was definitely a pattern. The walk felt different now. Not heavier, exactly. More uncertain. The office doors opened as before, silent and smooth. Kathess was already inside, standing near the central table this time. The room looked the same. But Evan noticed small changes. The lighting was warmer. The seating structure had already formed into something closer to a human chair, complete with a backrest. She had anticipated him.
You arrived on time, she said. I didn't want to keep you waiting, Evan replied.
That response, Kathess said, is also human. He gave a small smile despite himself and sat down. This time, he leaned back instead of perching on the edge. He was still nervous, but curiosity was starting to push past fear. Kathess did not immediately begin. She stood in silence, hands folded, gaze fixed on a point just past him. Evan wondered if she was thinking or processing something else entirely. I reviewed human literature after our last meeting, she said finally. Oh, Evan said.
That's a lot. Yes, she agreed.
Your species produces an excessive volume of narrative content. He laughed softly. We like stories. I have observed that, she said. Stories appear to serve multiple functions: education, emotional regulation, social bonding.
Yeah, Evan said. All of that.
She turned her gaze back to him. In multiple narratives, she continued. Loneliness is not resolved through efficiency, achievement, or authority. It is resolved through connection.
Evan nodded. That's usually how it goes. This concerns me, Kathis said.
Why? Because connection introduces variables, she replied. Variables introduce risk. Evan thought about that.
They do, he said. But they also make things
meaningful. She did not respond right away. In our previous conversation, Kathis said, you indicated that loneliness can occur even when one is surrounded by others.
Yeah.
Explain that further.
Evan took a breath. Okay?
Imagine you're in a room full of people who don't really see you. They talk around you, not to you. They know what you do, but not who you are. You're not alone, but you feel invisible. Kathis's eyes narrowed slightly. Invisibility is not possible in a shared space. Emotionally invisible, Evan clarified. She processed that. My species values clarity, she said. Visibility is direct. Either one is observed or one is not. Humans are complicated, Evan said gently. We can be seen without being understood. That seemed to unsettle her more than anything else he had said so far. You believe I do not understand you, she said. He hesitated. I think you're trying, he said carefully. Which is more than most people do. Kathis stepped closer to the table. Then allow me to be clear, she said. I do not experience loneliness as you describe it. But I experience absence.
Absence of what? Evan asked. She paused longer this time.
Of resonance, she said. Evan frowned slightly.
Resonance? When I speak with you, she continued, my thoughts do not remain static. They reflect.
They return altered. That does not occur with others. Evan felt a strange warmth in his chest. That's kind of what conversation is supposed to do. For humans, she said. Not for us, she straightened. This has led to inefficiencies, Kathis said. I find myself delaying decisions to continue dialogue. Replaying previous interactions, anticipating future ones. Evan blinked. You think about our conversations when I'm not there? Yes. He let out a quiet laugh, then stopped when he saw she was not joking.
Is that bad?
He asked.
I do not know, she said.
That is why you are here. Evan rubbed the back of his neck. Look, I'm not an expert. I don't have all the answers. But from a human point of view, where...
That sounds like you're forming a connection?
She looked at him intently. Define connection. Connection is when someone matters to you, Evan said. When their presence changes how you feel or think, when you'd notice if they were gone. Silence followed. Would you notice if I were gone? Kathis asked. The question was quiet. Direct.
Not a test, Evan answered honestly.
Yeah, I would.
Her gaze sharpened. Why? Because you challenge me, he said.
You make me think differently. And because...
You listened.
Kathis turned slightly away as if considering the window, but not really looking at it.
That response, she said, does not align with hierarchical logic. No, Evan agreed. It doesn't. She turned back.
Does connection always lead to emotional dependency? She asked. Not always, Evan said.
It can, but healthy connections usually involve choice, respect, boundaries.
Boundaries, she repeated. Lines people agree not to cross, Evan explained.
They help keep things safe.
She considered that. Humans establish boundaries even when no formal rule requires them.
Yeah. Why? Because we're aware of how easily things can get complicated, Evan said.
Her eyes stayed on his. Are things becoming complicated now? She asked. His heart skipped just a little. I think, he said slowly, they could, if we're not careful. Cawthor seemed to accept that answer.
Then let us be careful, she said.
She stepped back and, for the first time, sat down opposite him. The chair shaped itself to her form. "This is not an interrogation," she said. "It is an exchange." Evan relaxed slightly. "Okay, I will ask," she continued, "and you may decline to answer. That's fair. What do humans do," she asked, "when they recognize loneliness in another?" Evan thought about it, about late-night calls, about sitting beside someone without speaking, about small gestures that mattered more than big solutions.
"They show up," he said. "Explain."
"They're present," Evan said.
"They don't always fix the problem. They just make sure the person isn't facing it alone."
Cawthor absorbed that. "You are present now," she said. "Yes, that is a choice," she nodded. "It is." She leaned back slightly. "This presence," she said, "reduces the discomfort." Evan smiled softly. "That's connection working?" She studied him again. And this time, there was something different in her gaze. Not confusion, not analysis.
"Recognition. This dynamic," Cawthor said, "is not listed in coalition protocols. Human specialty," Evan said lightly.
She did not smile, but something about her posture softened. "Then we will proceed without protocol," she said. Evan raised an eyebrow. "You sure that's wise?" "No," she said.
"But it is necessary." The lights shifted again, signaling the end of the private cycle. "You may go," Cawthor said.
"For now." Evan stood. "Director," he said, then hesitated. "Cawthor," she allowed it. "If you ever feel that absence again," he said, "you don't have to analyze it alone." She held his gaze. "I will remember that," she said. As Evan left the office for the second time, he realized something important. Humans did not change the galaxy by force. They did it by sitting across from someone powerful, asking nothing, and offering presence instead. And that kind of influence was far more dangerous and far more hopeful than anyone had predicted. The third meeting did not come by message. It came by silence. Evan noticed it during the work cycle that followed his second visit to Cawthor's office. Usually, even when she did not speak directly to him, there was a sense of oversight. Requests passed through her division. Decisions carried her imprint. The system felt guided. This time, it felt paused. He checked the logs twice, then a third time. Several approvals that normally required her confirmation were delayed, not denied, not questioned, simply waiting. That worried him more than a summons would have. Humans were used to uncertainty, but Cawthor was not the type to leave processes unfinished. That kind of delay suggested internal conflict or reconsideration. Near the end of the cycle, Evan found himself staring at the empty message field on his console. He had not been called in. He had not been dismissed either. For the first time since joining her division, he felt unsure of his place. That feeling was uncomfortably familiar. Loneliness did not always come from being alone. Sometimes it came from being unsure if you still mattered. He almost laughed at himself for thinking that way. He was projecting. That was another human flaw. He stood up, stretched, and told himself to stop assuming meaning where none had been stated. That was when the lights above his station dimmed slightly. A private channel opened.
"Evan Calder," Cawthor's voice said. Not formal,
Not cold, just his name. "I am in Observation Chamber 3, she continued, "if you are available." He was already moving. The observation chamber was not an office. It was a quiet space built into the outer curve of the station, designed for reflection rather than work. Large transparent panels revealed the slow movement of stars beyond the shielded glass. No consoles. No data streams. Just space and silence. Kathis stood near the window when Evan arrived, her hands clasped behind her back as before. But her posture was different, less rigid, as if she were not fully certain where to place herself. "You didn't call it a meeting," Evan said gently. "No," she replied. "This is not one." He stepped closer, stopping at a respectful distance. "Are you all right?" he asked. She did not answer immediately. "I have been evaluating boundaries," she said instead. Evan nodded. "That can be uncomfortable." "Yes." She turned slightly, not fully facing him, but no longer turned away either.
In my culture, Kathas said, roles define interaction. Authority removes ambiguity.
Emotion is irrelevant. And now? Evan asked.
"And now," she said, "ambiguity persists even when roles are clear." He considered that. "That's because roles don't cover everything," he said. "Especially when it comes to people." She looked at him then, directly. "You are still my subordinate," she said. "And yet, when I seek understanding, I think of you first." Evan felt the weight of that statement settle in his chest. "That doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong," he said carefully. "It just means you trust me." "Trust," she repeated. Another human concept with no direct translation. "Trust is letting someone affect you," Evan said, "even though they could disappoint you."
That seems inefficient, Kathis said.
"It is," he agreed. "But it's also how we build anything lasting." They stood in silence for a while, watching the stars drift slowly past. Evan could feel the station's hum beneath his feet, steady and reassuring.
Evan Calder, Kathis said, "Do humans always question boundaries once they are acknowledged?" He thought about it.
"We don't always question them," he said. "But we do test them. Gently, to see where they really are. And if the boundary is unclear, then things get complicated," Evan said, "which is why we talk about it." She nodded slowly. "That is why I ask you here," she said, "to speak clearly." She turned fully toward him now. "I must understand something," she said.
Do you perceive this interaction as inappropriate? The question was careful, measured.
But there was something vulnerable beneath it. Evan did not answer right away. "I think," he said finally, "it depends on what we make it." "Explain." "If this stays about understanding, respect, and choice," he said, "then it's okay. If it starts to ignore power differences or pressure or expectations, then it's not." Kathis has considered that deeply. "You feel no pressure now?" she asked. "No," Evan said. "I feel invited." She seemed to relax slightly at that. "That distinction is important," she said. "Yes," Evan replied.
It really is. They returned their attention to the stars. "I observed human recreational media," Kathis said after a time.
"Specifically, narratives involving authority figures and subordinates." Evan winced.
That can go very wrong?
"Yes," she agreed.
They often do. Those stories are usually warnings, Evan said, not instructions.
"That aligns with my conclusion," she said.
"They demonstrate consequences of unexamined imbalance," he smiled faintly. "Humans learn by messing up and then telling stories about it." "That too is inefficient," she said. "But effective," Evan replied. She inclined her head slightly, acknowledging the point. "There is another concern," Kathis said. "My continued interaction with you has altered my perception of others." "In what way?" "I find myself expecting resonance," she said, "and feeling dissatisfied when it is absent." Evan frowned gently. "That's something humans struggle with, too." "How do you resolve it?" she asked. "We don't, really," he said.
"We just accept that not everyone connects the same way. Some connections are rare.
That doesn't make the others worthless. She absorbed that quietly.
So this, she said, gesturing between them, is rare. I think so, Evan said honestly. She studied his face, searching for something.
And you are not uncomfortable with that rarity? No, he said. I'm just aware of it. That seemed to matter to her.
The chamber lights dimmed slightly, responding to the station's slow shift into rest cycle. The stars outside appeared brighter.
I have been nominated,
Kathas said suddenly. Evan turned to her. For what? For consideration as a Coalition Council representative, she said. The first of my species to be evaluated for such a role independently. That's huge, Evan said. Congratulations. Her expression did not change. The evaluation includes psychological adaptability, she said. Specifically, my ability to relate to non-hierarchical species. Evan understood immediately. They're watching you, he said.
Yes, she replied. Indirectly. And us, he added.
She did not deny it. That changes things, Evan said quietly.
Yes, she agreed. Silence stretched again, heavier this time.
Does that mean we should stop these conversations? Evan asked. Kakathes looked at him for a long moment.
No, she said. It means we must understand them more clearly.
Transparency,
Evan said.
Precisely.
She stepped closer to the window, and Evan joined her. They stood side by side now, not facing each other, but sharing the same view. If I am to represent the Coalition, Kathas said, I must understand humanity beyond data and models. And if you don't, Evan asked, then I risk making decisions that are technically sound, she said, and profoundly wrong, not in himself, but in his species. We're not easy to understand, he said.
But we're worth the effort.
She glanced at him.
You believe that strongly.
I do, he said.
Even knowing humanity's flaws? Especially knowing them, Evan replied.
Kathas nodded once. This interaction, she said, will continue. Evan met her gaze. On what terms? Mutual consent, she said. Clear boundaries, and the understanding that either of us may end it at any time.
That's very human,
Evan said. I am learning, she replied. The rest cycle chime echoed softly through the chamber.
You should rest,
Kathas said. Humans require it, he smiled. So do you, even if you don't admit it. She did not deny that either. As Evan left the observation chamber, he realized something important. This was no longer just about loneliness. It was about choice, about responsibility. About two individuals from different worlds, deciding carefully and consciously how close was close enough. And for the first time, Evan understood why the galaxy found humans unsettling. They did not force change. They invited it. The announcement did not come with celebration. When the Coalition notice appeared across internal channels, it was written in neutral language, stripped of emphasis or praise. Director Kathas was formally advanced to the final evaluation stage for council representation. No ceremony. No applause. Just acknowledgement. For most of the station, it was another administrative update. For Evan, it changed the air around everything. He noticed it first in the way people behaved. Conversations quieted when Kathas passed. Other directors observed her more closely, their attention lingering longer than before. Even the station system seemed to hesitate, routing requests through additional layers of confirmation. Power always did that. It bent space without touching it. Evan felt the weight of it settle on his shoulders, too, even though no one had said his name. He had not been summoned since the observation chamber. No private messages. No quiet invitations. Kathas maintained strict professional distance during official cycles, addressing him only when necessary and never alone. It was deliberate. That, more than anything, told Evan how serious this had become. During the 4th rest cycle after the announcement, Evan stayed late in the shared workspace, not because he needed to, but because returning to his quarters felt like stepping into a silence he wasn't ready for yet. He was reviewing a dataset for the 3rd time when he realized he wasn't actually reading it. His thoughts kept circling the same question. Had he helped or complicated things? Humans like to believe their presence was a gift, that empathy was always good. That connection healed more than it harmed. But Evan knew better. He had lived long enough to see good intentions collide with reality, and now Kathessis stood on the edge of something enormous. If she fell, even slightly, people would look for reasons. And humans were very easy reasons. The message came when he least expected it. Not a summon, not a request, a location. Upper Transit Ring, maintenance overlook. Evan stared at it for a long moment. That area was rarely used, quiet, unmonitored. He shut down his console and stood. The overlook was dim, lit only by emergency strips and the distant glow of stars bleeding through reinforced panels. Evan found Kathis standing near the rail, her outline framed by the vastness beyond the station. She did not turn when he approached.
I did not call this a meeting, she said. I know, Evan replied.
Nor is it sanctioned. I figured. Silence settled between them, deep and steady. They are evaluating me continuously now, Kathis said.
Every decision, every delay.
Every deviation from norm. Evan nodded. That's what happens when people think you matter. Her head turned slightly. You say that as if it is undesirable. It can be, he said, when it stops you from being human. Or yourself. She faced him then. I am not human, she said. No, Evan agreed, but you're still a person. That word lingered between them. I have reviewed the assessments, Kathis said. They seek evidence of adaptability, of empathy, of relational capacity. And yet, she continued, too much evidence of such traits would be considered destabilizing. Evan exhaled slowly. They want you to change, but not too much.
Yes, that's unfair, he said.
That is governance, she replied. They stood, side by side, looking out at the stars again.
I have been careful, Kathis said, deliberately distant.
I have limited our interaction to avoid misinterpretation. I noticed, Evan said softly. Did it trouble you? He thought about it, about the quiet, about the absence she had named. Yes, he said honestly, but I understood why. She inclined her head slightly. That matters. Another pause. Evan called her, she said. Do you believe humans influence others without consent? The question caught him off guard. I think, he said slowly, we influence people by being ourselves, whether they consent or not. That sounds dangerous, she said. It can be, he admitted. Now, which is why intention matters. She turned toward him fully now. My intention, she said, is not personal attachment. Evan met her gaze.
Then what is it?
Understanding, she replied. Perspective. A way to lead that does not fracture those beneath it. That's a good intention, Evan said. And yet, she continued, I am aware that my reliance on your presence may be perceived as favoritism or weakness.
That's the risk, Evan said quietly. Yes. Silence again.
I have considered removing you from my division, Kathis said. Evan's chest tightened, but he did not interrupt.
It would resolve multiple concerns, she continued. Eliminate speculation.
Protect the evaluation process.
And? Evan asked.
And it would be incorrect?
He looked at her then, really looked. Why? He asked. Because it would be a decision made from fear, she said, not clarity. Evan felt a slow warmth spread through him. Not pride, not relief. Respect. That's leadership, he said. Puh. She studied his face carefully. I require your honesty, she said, not as my subordinate, but as an individual.
You have it, Evan said.
If I succeed, she said, my position will place me beyond this station, beyond this division. Evan nodded. He had expected that. And if I fail, she asked.
Then you'll still be you, Evan said. Just without a title.
She considered that.
Would you regret this interaction? She asked. He answered without hesitation.
No. Even if it costs me the position? Evan paused then. Not long. Just enough to choose his words carefully. I would regret being the reason you doubted yourself, he said. But I wouldn't regret helping you understand something real. Her eyes darkened slightly, reflecting the stars. That answer, she said, is unacceptable by coalition standards. Good thing I'm human, Evan replied. For a brief moment, so brief it could almost be imagined, something like amusement passed across her features. There is one more matter, Katha said. She reached into the space between them and activated a small field. A privacy veil bloomed softly around the overlook, isolating them from the rest of the station. Is that safe? Evan asked. Yes, she said, and temporary. She faced him fully now, posture straight, voice steady. If I am appointed, she said, I will need a human advisor, unofficial, unnamed, one who understands connection without exploiting it. Evan's breath caught. You're asking me, he said. Yes, that's dangerous, he said.
It is, she agreed. Why me? He asked quietly.
Because you do not seek influence, she said. And because you are willing to walk away, if necessary. He let that settle. If I say no? Evan asked.
Then nothing changes, she replied.
And I will accept that choice. Again. Humans always came back to that. I won't say yes right now, Evan said. That is acceptable. But I won't say no either, he added. Kothis nodded once. That is honest. The privacy field faded. You should rest, she said. Tomorrow will require clarity. Evan turned to leave, then stopped. Kothis, he said. Yes? No matter what happens, he said. You didn't lose yourself trying to understand others. That matters. She held his gaze. To humans, she said. And to anyone worth following, Evan replied. As he walked away from the overlook, Evan realized something he had not expected. The galaxy did not fear human strength. It feared what happened when humans reminded powerful beings that leadership was not about standing above others, but standing with them, long enough to listen. The final decision came quietly. There was no station-wide alert, no formal gathering, no visible shift in routine, just a small update in the Coalition registry that most beings skimmed past without thought. Director Kathes was confirmed as a council representative. For the galaxy, it was history. For Evan, it was a moment that arrived while he was adjusting a data filter and almost missed it entirely. The confirmation appeared on his console, embedded in a long stream of routine notices. He read it once, then again. Then he sat back in his chair and let out a slow breath he hadn't realized he was holding. She had done it. Not by force, not by bending herself into something unrecognizable, but by standing exactly where she was and refusing to retreat from understanding. The station felt different after that. Even though nothing physical had changed,
People moved with a new awareness, as if the space itself had learned something and was still processing it. Conversations carried a careful edge. Decisions took on more weight. And Kathess was everywhere and nowhere at once. Her schedule was full. Her presence was demanded across layers of governance that stretched far beyond the station. When she did appear in person, she carried herself with the same calm authority as before, but there was something new beneath it, a steadiness that did not come from certainty alone.
Evan did not see her for 2 full cycles.
No messages, no quiet invitations, no unscheduled encounters in observation chambers or overlooks. He told himself that was how it should be, that this was the cost of success. That distance was not loss. Still, when the silence stretched longer than expected, he felt it again. That absence. On the 3rd cycle, a message appeared on his console. Not a location.
A question. Are you willing to speak without obligation?
Evan stared at the words for a long time. Then he typed a single response. Yes. The place she chose was not grand. It was a simple transit lounge near the edge of the station, overlooked by most and unused during high traffic periods. The windows were smaller here, the stars framed instead of overwhelming. The seating was plain and unremarkable. It felt intentionally human. Kathess was already there when Evan arrived, seated this time, her posture relaxed in a way he had never seen before. No insignia marked her role. No symbols of authority followed her into the space. She stood when she saw him. "Thank you for coming," she said. "You didn't order me," Evan replied. "No," she agreed. "I asked."
That mattered.
They sat across from each other, a small table between them. For a moment, neither spoke. "I have accepted the position," Kathess said eventually. "I know," Evan replied. "Congratulations." She studied his face carefully. "You do not sound surprised." "I wasn't," he said. "You were ready. That assessment," she said, "is not universal." Evan smiled faintly. "It never is." Another pause. "This will be our last conversation in this context," Kathess said. He nodded. "I figured." Her gaze did not waver. "I want to be precise," she continued. "The advisory role I mentioned previously remains available, but it will not be constant. It will not be visible, and it will never be required."
Evan leaned back slightly. "You're offering me a door, not a leash?" "Yes," she said. "You may walk through it, or not. At any time." "That's a lot of trust," he said. "It is earned," she replied. Evan considered the offer carefully. He thought about the weight of it, the responsibility, the risk of being close to power without being consumed by it.
And he thought about something else too.
"If I say yes," he said, "I don't want to become a symbol."
You will not, Kathess said immediately. I don't want to be the human voice,
he continued, "or a justification, or a story people tell to make decisions feel better."
She inclined her head.
You would be none of those. Then what would I be? Evan asked. She met his gaze.
"Present," she said. Evan felt something settle inside him at that word.
"Okay," he said. "Then yes."
On those terms. Kathess exhaled. A subtle shift, but unmistakable. "Thank you," she said. They sat together in silence for a while after that. Not the heavy silence of uncertainty, but the quiet that came after a choice had been made.
"There is one more thing," Kathess said.
"Of course," Evan replied. "My species does not mark transitions," she said. "We do not have rituals for endings." "Humans do," Evan said.
Yes.
I have learned that. She reached into the space between them and placed a small object on the table. It was simple, smooth, a thin band of material that caught the light without reflecting it.
What is it? Evan asked. A personal marker, she said.
Not a title, not a command. A reminder of what? That connection does not weaken authority, she said. It refines it. Evan picked up the band carefully. I'll keep it, he said. That is all I ask. The station's cycle chime echoed softly through the lounge, signaling a shift in activity. Time moved forward, as it always did. I will be leaving this station soon, Kathess said. My duties will take me beyond it. I know, Evan replied. Will you remain? She asked. For now, he said. Someone has to keep the systems from falling apart. She considered that, then nodded. Then this is not a farewell? She said. Only a change in distance. Evan smiled. Humans are good at those. She stood, and he stood with her. Evan Calder, she said, using his full name one last time. You changed nothing by force. Good, he replied. I was worried I did. You changed perspective, she said. That is more difficult, and more lasting. She turned to leave, then paused. And Evan, she added. Yes, you were never invisible. Then she was gone, moving back into the flow of the station, into a role that would shape decisions across worlds. Evan remained where he was for a few moments longer, the small band resting in his palm. Around him, the station continued as it always had. People walked, systems hummed, life went on. But something fundamental had shifted, not because humans had proven they were the strongest, not because they were the smartest, but because, once again, they had done what they always did best. They sat with someone powerful. They listened. They offered presence instead of pressure. And in doing so, they reminded the galaxy of something it had forgotten, that the future was not built by standing above others, but by choosing, again and again, to stand beside them.